This episode of Marijuana Today Daily is brought to you by the good folks over at Compliant Packaging, makers of the innovative Lock Tins line, which is designed to be both child-resistant as well as easily openable by adults, even those living with hand mobility issues. Compliant Packaging's crew has more than 4 decades of experience in industrial, medical, pharmaceutical, and retail packaging, and are there to bring all of that expertise to bear for you and your legal cannabis brand. Swing over to CompliantPackaging.com to learn more about all the different things that Compliant Packaging can do for you. That's CompliantPackaging.com. You can also swing over to LockTins.com, spelled LOCTINS, LockTins.com, to get the full scoop on that very cool technology. Big thanks to everyone at Compliant Packaging for the support that makes today's show possible. Good morning, Marijuana Nation. It's Tuesday, January 8th, 2019, and you're tuned in to episode 638 of Marijuana Today Daily. I'm your host, Shay Gunther, and I'll be walking you through today's marijuana news and headlines. As always, we have a full and busy day of cannabis news in our hands, so let's jump right into it. We lead off today's headlines with some pretty cool news, as newly sworn in Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez just hired Dan Riffle, a former marijuana legalization activist, as a policy advisor and senior counsel. Dan has been working in political communications for the last few years after resigning from the Marijuana Policy Project in 2014, where he worked as director of federal policy. Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez has explicitly called for the legalization of marijuana, and the addition of Dan to her team bodes well for the high level of policy development we should expect to see from her office. This is awesome news. Pop over to Marijuana Moment for the full read on this one. Marijuana Business Daily's chart of the week grabs a top spot, which is always fun to see for a chart. Today, it's the wisdom teased out of the numbers by Maggie Cowie, who picked up on the very successful first year of legal medical marijuana sales had by the state of Maryland, which saw just under $100 million in sales flow through its registered dispensaries in its first year, blowing away the first-year totals for other medical states like Illinois, Massachusetts, and New York, which collectively didn't sell as much medical cannabis in their first year as little old Maryland did. As they always do, the folks over at Marijuana Business Daily lay out lots of good background detail and context on this one, so I'd direct you over to there for the full absorption. Rounding out today's top stories brings us up to Canada, which is in the opening months of having its new coast-to-coast legal adult use sales system up and running. Regular listeners should know that the process has not been without lots of hiccups, as licensing and supply snafus have contributed to limited store openings, empty shelves, and overall sparse customer access. The Washington Post looks at how that transition is going so far and found that there are still plenty of Canadians who are getting their cannabis from the illicit market. Tons of lessons to be learned there, no matter where you live. I'd read this one today, too. Those are our top stories for today. It's time for Marijuana Today Daily Headlines Blitz. Before we blitz out on headlines, let's quickly thank our sponsor, Compliant Packaging, makers of the innovative Lock Tins line, which is designed to be both child-resistant as well as easily openable by adults, even those living with hand mobility issues. If you have a legal marijuana product in need of top-quality packaging that's compliant with all the different U.S. packaging laws, then you need to check out Compliant Packaging and all the things they offer. Their Lock Tins line come in all different sizes and can be easily twisted open by adults, but not by kids. Lock Tins can be fully printed with your branding and packaging and can even be combined with custom foam inserts that allow you to fit in loaded cartridges or glass jars. Give your legal cannabis products a boost with great packaging by working with Compliant Packaging. Swing over to CompliantPackaging.com and LockTins.com to learn more, with LockTins spelled LOCTINS. All right, time for the Blitz. A month after the state of Michigan flipped the switch over to having progressive and liberal adult use marijuana laws, there have been no reports as of yet of massive cannabis carnage on the roads. In fact, in 3 Michigan counties, there have been almost no arrests for cannabis crimes at all since December 6th, with just one impaired driving case even mentioning cannabis. That is very admittedly a short amount of time and a limited sample size, but I'm still taking this one to the bank. We'll see how things fall in the coming months and years. Hopping up to Vermont for a pair of headlines, we first have the story of Vermont state lawmakers working to pass legislation setting up a taxed and regulated sales scheme for adult use marijuana, which was legalized last year via the first time in the U.S. legislative action. That initial legalization bill did not, however, allow for marijuana sales, and now lawmakers are catching up and trying to figure out how to best make that happen. As with all things political, things are getting a little political, with the state Senate ready to move on legalization legislation as their House peers talk of slowing things down. If you're in Vermont, not a bad one to add to your list of stories to read. Our second Green Mountain State headline is a good one, as the Vermont Supreme Court just ruled that the faint smell of burnt marijuana does not justify police searching a vehicle. On Friday, the state's justices found in favor of Greg Zullo, who was pulled over by police in 2014 for supposedly having a snow-covered registration sticker. After the police officer said he smelled marijuana, he asked to search the car and was refused. Mr. Zulu, who I should mention is black, living in an overwhelmingly white state, then watched as his car was towed away so that the police could file a search warrant. After a search of the car turned up just a grinder and marijuana pipe, which were perfectly legal to possess, Mr. Zulu was able to get his car back after paying a $150 towing fee. Then he sued, and then he won. Nicely done there. Leafly has a good article on this, along with a link to the court filing itself, which is a good read. Multi-state operator Green Thumbs Industries just announced a rather large transaction that will extend its reach into Connecticut. The $80 million deal to acquire Advanced Grow Labs LLC will give it an operational footprint in the state that includes a 41,000 square foot manufacturing facility and partial ownership in one of the state's licensed dispensaries. The deal will see GTI spend $15 million in cash, with the balance to be made up in GTI stock. After the completion of this deal, GTI will have 85 dispensary licenses on its books, as well as 12 manufacturing facilities, all spread out over 11 states. I should probably disclose that GTI is a small sponsor of our newsfeed email newsletter as a member of our Patreon Century Club. The Colorado Sun is a good in-depth profile of their state's new governor, Jared Polis, seen through the frame of his pro-cannabis bona fides. Governor Polis is the former congressman for Colorado and has been one of the biggest supporters of the Mile High State's legal cannabis industry since it was voted in via ballot measure in 2012. John Frank at the Colorado Sun pulls out all kinds of useful cannabis bits in this one, which is worthy of a full dive in. A federal agency is putting up $1.5 million in funding to study the medicinal effects of marijuana terpenes and minor cannabinoids. The National Center for Complementary and Integrative Health posted details for the funding last week and will accept applications from researchers through March 15th. Kyle Yeager has all the details on this one over at Marijuana Moments. Wrapping up a solid day on the daily with his third story, Kyle brings us a more light-hearted item about rapper Redman, whose mom recently discovered a bunch of 20-year-old packaged-up bags of marijuana, which Redman pulled out to film while talking about the history of the decades-old cannabis. If you're into hip-hop history or just like funny stories, this is one you want to open up. Also, Redman's mom is pretty awesome. Those are the headlines and news for the day. I'll be back with you again tomorrow morning with another information-packed episode of Marijuana Today Daily. But in the meantime, if you have any stories to share or feedback to give, zip us an email to headlines@mjtodaydaily.com. And while you're clicking around the interwebs, swing over to our Twitter account at mjtodaydaily and visit our website at mjtodaydaily.com to find links to all the news we cover. Thanks to our sponsor, Compliant Packaging, and to all of our awesome Patreon listeners for the support that makes this show possible. To join the illustrious ranks of the Patreon listeners yourself, swing over to our website at mjtodaydaily.com and click on that big blue button at the top of the page that says Become a Patron. I'm your host, Shay Gunther. Thanks for tuning in, starting your day with marijuana today.
One take, Shay. One take.